So, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming up today. I know that past week was intense, and some of you are still under the sequels of what happened last week with Texas. Hopefully, all your families are doing well. Our best wishes for all of you. But well, I guess this is a proper time for us to just let some of that out by philosophizing, which is some way of, catharsis. Today's topic is going to be a mix, which in sense is also going to be longer. It's about truth, facts, and faith, proof, and belief. So we have a little bit more of like the religious aspect of truth combined with scientific aspect of truth. So it's going to be intense. We're not asking anybody to take a specific position. We're just going to be talking informally as we always do, having some fun, but instead of just 1 hour, an hour and a half. With that being said, I can see that some of you are new into this system, so we roll in one way and one way only. We don't raise hands because it's hard for us to know who raised it first. So what we normally just do, and it's just we write on the text chat an exclamation mark. So if you can see, yeah, in this case it will be user first and then I. Yes. Uh, if you cannot see the conversation in the chat, please let me know right now because this is how we ensure that we are following an order for speaking. So if you have something to say, you just have to say that, and that's basically it. Any other thing that I'm missing or any important announcement before we start, Nancy?
Yeah, I know this seems like forever ago, but I want to shout out everybody that came to the film series almost a couple weeks ago now. It was a lot of fun. The movie was very thought-provoking, and it was called The Zero Theorem. Uh, the conversation I thought was fantastic. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot to talk about, a lot to joke about. If you want to check that out, feel free to scroll up on the Teams page. I believe it was the last meeting prior to this one. And you can also check out us on YouTube. Every meeting gets recorded, as you know. Right now, it's currently being recorded, and it gets posted to YouTube. We have 10 semesters worth of meetings up there. So it's a lot of fun. You can go back. We're like the Sopranos of the Philosophy Club. Just go back and start from the beginning and see how it grows, see how it develops. Yeah, my character arc enters a steep decline. But yeah, check us out on social media as well. We have the artist in residence here, Orlando Silva, composing the Instagram posts, doing a fine job there. And of course, if you want to get on our email list, just let us know. You can either include your email address in the chat, or you can send a private message to Ferdinando. He'll add you to the email list. He takes care of the emails. And yeah, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, as I mentioned, and we have a website as well. So feel free to check us out there.
Yeah, we're also in your thoughts, essentially. Hair police reporting here. Ravi's making fun of your hair. Oh, that's so fun.
My beautiful
Uh,
mane, letting it grow out. It's been 5
okay.
minutes. My last haircut.
It's wonderful, Professor. It's wonderful.
I detect the sarcasm, and I'm okay with
He approves this message. It's all right.
Well, let me ask you all. I mean, how do you want to do this? We can kind of go one topic and then kind of cut it and go to the other, or we could just kind of merge the two, and whoever has thoughts on either side. So again, we're starting a new monthly theme, truth. We concluded last month's theme, reality, but closely related themes philosophically. And today's joint topics, they kind of play off of the last month's topics under the different theme. So truth, kind of what is it? What constitutes it? And also, I suppose, how do you defend it? So what is truth? Is it information? Is it empirical evidence, a la science? Or is truth something that maybe gets revealed? Is it something that maybe can't be proven, but it can be known? What is a true belief? What makes a belief true versus a belief false? How does something like faith factor into it? So there's a lot that we can dissect here. Yeah, let's just do it that way. Whoever has thoughts on, I guess, either side, not that they're necessarily diametrically opposed, but yeah, we don't really have to stick to any particular, I suppose, like timed agenda. We can kind of bounce around. And again,
Okay.
put the exclamation mark in the chat.
All right. I mean, sure. I can start, I guess.
Please.
Please? No. He insist. Okay. So, well, I I know was by coincidence, but I'm actually excited to have this type of conversation first because I know that at some point will be some sort of debate between Yusha and Orlando. That's just gonna happen. So yes, it's gonna happen. I'm telling you. And the other one is like I do want to kind of like assess how our group is fitting all this concept of truth, like in the part of the religious and the scientific version of it, because I mean, I feel like sometimes when it comes to philosophy, it tends to be a little bit, at least more like recently, disassociated with trying to disprove religion to some extent. So I want to assess if that's really the case in this group or not. Um, for me, truth is something I cannot say is set, if I'm being honest, mostly because we a lot of the times believe that something is the reality when it really we never really possess all the elements that constitute what is truth. And even though we may feel it and we may think like, yes, I have been told my whole life that this is what it is, some people continue believing that, I mean, earth is flat, and they die believing that the earth is flat, and that was their truth, and people were executed and things like that if you say otherwise. So how truthful can we really even say that scientific elements can really portray what our surroundings are really made of? Or sometimes even if our senses are capable of really perceiving all the elements that allow us to know this truth, understand it. And I see that Courtney, you are oh wait, is it Courtney? No, I was about to jump somebody. You said, were you trying to speak? I got distracted by the Hair Police comment.
No, Courtney, you can go. I was just going to bring up the website, but Professor Manzi already did. Go check it out. We have philosopher hours where you can meet with us either one-on-one or with the entire team. Leave us a comment, suggest any changes, or if you want your blog to be featured on the website, feel free to reach out to any of the officers, either me, Ferdinando, or Orlando, or the advisor. So yeah, if you write something you feel like you want to publish, feel free to send it to any of us. I can update the website to feature you. And based on student engagement and the kind of the back and forth and the discussion, we're gonna pick out student spotlights where we pick out a special student. We make them as the center stage for our social media and the website. So keep an eye out for those. And yeah, I mean, great discussion. I'm sorry I'm late. It's just I'm busy with three different things here. So yeah, but I'm here.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so Courtney, you're next.
Huh? Sir?
Yes.
Sorry, what was the question? I'm sorry.
There's no question. I see that you have your exclamation mark, so I'm assuming you want to say something.
I think she might have heard you say Karen. We said Courtney. I'm sorry.
Oh, Courtney. Yes. Oh, is my accent? Oh, don't mind my accent, please. Yes, it's Brisley Courtney. Brisley. It's a CV.
That's okay.
All right. So, whichever is the name, please feel free to speak.
You first.
Me first? No, it's your turn. I already spoke.
No, it's not Courtney talking. It's Karen. Courtney, you are free to talk.
I think Courtney said she was tipping out at the moment. But
Okay,
yeah, I'll jump in.
You might be
Oh, wait.
muted, Courtney. Try to.
No.
There should be a mic that says mute on it. You'll have to click it on.
Yeah, you're muted right now. Yeah.
Oh wait, it's not muted. I just looked. It's not muted, huh?
I
So
think
yeah,
we're
we can
all
actually.
having. I think we're all having problems with our muting stuff today.
It's a mutiny.
We are parrots.
Thank you
We,
for laughing at that.
yeah, we just lost like 5 new members.
Hey, Courtney, we can't hear you, but
Worth-
can you try dropping the call and then joining back? Maybe there's some sort of system error.
Or
I think
you can
mine's.
type, or you
I
You
can
think
can
just
Esther.
type
type
your
and
answer
we'll read
too.
it to you.
That's perfectly fine as well.
But in the meantime, Nancy, you're next.
Okay, y'all. Yeah, just real quick, Fernando, the way you kind of described it made me think of another valuable angle to this conversation. It's because we want to describe or we want to discuss various descriptions of what constitutes truth and how we can justify something as true. You know, what makes knowledge knowledge? Is it just believing? Is it believing with rational justification? Does said rational justification merely imply logical reasoning, or does it require something like, again, experience or empirical evidence? But also, what is the function of truth in one's life? Can we argue that maybe one's beliefs, regardless of how true they are somehow more valuable or more, again, functional in one's day-to-day living? And again, we don't have to talk about truth necessarily at first with a capital T, like what is truth eternal or something like that. It could be as simple as things like, I believe that when I turn around, I'm going to see my bedroom. That's my belief. I believe that's the truth of the situation. Do I really know that? Well, I can say, yeah, I know that based on experience. I know that based upon how my senses work. But do I know that what my senses reveal to me are the same thing as what's actually there? I mean, do I know that as truth, or do I just believe that? And I take that belief and I use it all the time. How does that relate to, you know, things like one's values or one's relationships? I mean, what is the, I mean, are you able to discuss the truth of, say, I don't know, your relationship with your parents or your relationship with your boss? Like, when you describe it, do you describe it as something that is undebatable? Like, no, we have a good relationship, a good working relationship. I submit my hours and my boss grants them to me. Or is there reason to doubt things that you think you know to be true? And if so, what causes doubt? So again, just different angles, different perspectives on which to view this. We don't have to kind of start by saying, is there truth? Because the truth is, we live like truth exists, whether it exists or not. And that's what I find so fascinating. So you can have faith in things like, obviously, God and stuff, but you also have faith in a lot of just average, everyday beliefs that you take for granted. And even if you can disprove them, is it valuable to disprove them or not?
I mean, it's yes. And before I continue with what you were saying, that you did open it up to a very good point. I also before you end this, you were making me think, like for example, like even sometimes when we're looking for a truth, sometimes we're trying to prove something that we already have a preconceived idea. So when we're facing to something new, we don't necessarily spot it. It could be right there, but since we're so focused on, like, and trying to prove something that we already thought, or somebody that something already told us something before, like, it's like, okay, the truth is there, but you don't see it. And that happens many times, like in scientific, or even those who are following like religious, like so closely that they don't challenge their own views of their own religion from time to time, trying to kind of like expand a little bit more of their knowledge. And like, kind of like piggybacking then on how you ended, like, is it then worthy of kind of like challenging those truths? Like, is it okay? Because if nobody really manages the same truth, like, who are you to say no? That's like, what makes your version of true make somebody else say you're wrong? That's not true. Under which consequences we can maybe assume that, well, if your truth will endly like damage somebody, like, I don't know, mental state or something, like it really damage somebody else's, then maybe they try to assess. But even then, what if that hurt will make the creation of a new individual who will be better prepared for life later? So you can't really even tell that. But I see the chat is kind of like jumping in. Orlando, I think you're next, so go ahead. And yeah.
I don't really have anything specific. I don't have like a strong opinion on this because it feels kind of vague here. I feel like when it comes to this, there's no real, like, we're not really asking a question. We're kind of just saying, here are these words, what are they? And how do
He's
they
waiting
relate?
for more content.
And so, yeah, but like, I mean, in terms of truth, what is it? The state of something being true. Okay, well, now that we have the word true, how do we arrive at this idea of true? Is it like how Manzi said, this idea of fact? Like, am I looking at something logically using empirical evidence to base this truth out of? Or am I using sort of this emotional understanding or logic, emotional logic, and I'm using faith to do it? And I think those faith and facts kind of serve different purposes. I think in terms of spirituality or even your own moral compass and your own personal identity, things like emotional understanding and basing truth off of that is important. And sometimes it's necessary for being skeptical. But I think when it comes to things like functioning of society, you have to base it on facts. You have to look at, okay, what section of my society needs the most help in terms of maybe money, in terms of resources. How am I going to look empirically, neutrally at this world without emotional investment so that I can help the most amount of people? And I think that's what they serve. Those different kinds of facets of understanding serve different purposes. I think they can intermix well enough, but I think there is an issue when you start to say, oh, well, I don't want to believe this fact because I don't feel like it's true. And then that feeling has a negative impact on others. Easy examples, I'd say things like global warming or climate change. You have people who just don't feel like the evidence is true. They feel like it's politically ideological wrong. It's an ideological wrong thing to do. And then that becomes a problem, an existential problem for everyone. So I'll stop there.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I can see the point that you're making. I'm gonna try to see.
Get off of it now!
Yes, exactly. Now, because now is the time to Courtney to see if her mic is working.
Is my mic working?
We're talking to Courtney. I'm sorry.
Courtney, like I'm not saying Karen. Now I'm feeling that you're teasing me. Breesley, I'm gonna try just with Breesley, but I never really like to call somebody by the last name. Breesley, I cannot hear you. I'm not sure if you're speaking. If not, that's okay. You can always just type and I will read it for you, all right? I will do like 5 seconds. Like I will be like 5, 4. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
So I will read it. I think truth can. Oh, I will then. This is her words, not mine. I think truth can depend on the situation you are and in whether or not the truth can be tested, for lack of a better word. If I touch fire, I know it is true I will get burned. However, if I think it is true that I have a great relationship with my mom, that is assuming a truth for myself and for someone else, my mom. And you cannot assume someone else's truth. That's a very good point. That is a very good point indeed. All right. So Mansi, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that point because I agree. I think that's a fantastic one. It brings up, if nothing else, and Orlando was touching upon this too, the social dimension of truth, of building truth, of accepting truth collectively. Yeah, I mean, so if you want to work with the relationship, say between yourself and like a family member, or even yourself and a beloved or something like that, you could say to your beloved, we have a strong relationship, we're good. And your beloved might say, no, we don't have a strong relationship, we're not good, things are rough. And so that gives rise to the question, well, what is the truth, quote unquote, of our relationship? Now, last time we met, we talked about, or a few times ago, we talked about perception. And I think that's kind of playing a role here. But I think something else to consider aside from that is, well, where are these various perspectives, or what are these various perspectives basing their perspectives on? So your beloved might say, I'm basing my perspective, my opinion, my belief on the truth of our relationship on past experiences. I've witnessed whatever arguments we've had. I've witnessed the way we've treated each other. So those are the historical facts of the situation, based upon experience, based upon the evidence that other people have seen when they've seen us fight, for example. This is my truth. This is how I've constituted the truth as I see it of our relationship. The other person might say, yeah, okay, I accept that has happened factually, but I have faith. I believe that we're better than our past actions. I believe there's more to the relationship than merely the past experiences. And so that's how I'm constituting my truth. So the real question is, can those two perspectives come to a compromise? And I think that's like an example of a larger sort of societal truth, which is, how do several people come to a consensus as to what's true when it comes to, I don't know, the nation's relationship to their government or things along these lines. Yeah, so I really appreciate that point. I think it's a really good springboard for, yeah, feel free to type, Courtney, for where we can take it here. Because again, you could root something as simple as just disagreeing over the nature of a relationship in things like facts or faith, empirical evidence, or I don't know, maybe a hope or a longing.
Yeah, and I do have, like, this is also the you made me think also in what happened when a person has both truths. Like, they see like an empirical evidence that, let's say, in a relationship something is not going to work, but you still believe that the other person is right for you. So you want to create a new truth. So you have these two truths kind of like facing each other, and one of them eventually will be dismissed, whether it was the empirical one or not. Like, I don't know if my example is making too much sense. Like, I'm basing basically on the whole concept of, like, if enough people believe a lie, it becomes a truth. Um, so, like, maybe they are really not meant for each other, but they don't want to keep exploring something, so they made some changes that eventually made it truth, even though initially it was not. So that's, like, I feel like truth, in to some extent, is not that fixed. It's really very much moldable, and that it keep reassessing itself as it goes, as time progresses. Because, yeah, like we can say before, like, if we say, like, hey, we need to travel from, I don't know, from Texas to California, and we have to be there in, I don't know, in a day. It's like, it's not gonna happen. Now it's like, okay, let's book it. It's gonna be expensive, but just let's go. Now it's a reality. So truth seems to be adjusting with us. And okay, I see Orlando is next. Let me read very quickly, Courtney, and not Karen. So I think that every situation has different truths depending on the lenses one is viewing. You can look through a historical lens, an emotional lens, a social lens, and so on, but each lens has a different truth. I agree with you. And I will not continue using my time since we have people on the queue, so go ahead, Orlando.
I like what Courtney had to say in that message there. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily always true. I think social, historical, and emotional lens can sometimes agree. I think they'll just have different perspectives of the truth. Different ways, like how you said, different ways to look at it. And in that sense, I mean, I think when Amanzi, when you asked, oh well, can those intermingle? I think to some extent we have faith about certain facts. Is that facts may not tell us the full story, but we have faith that depending on what it kind of leads to or what it looks like, that it will work, or that it will be enough. You only have a certain percentage of, when you go to the doctor and you're having surgery, they're going to tell you, hey, you know what, there's only percentage of chance that you're going to survive this. And so to some extent, you have to have faith in that. And that kind of goes to the question of, okay, well, is there a way for us to have both in terms of just societal problems? I think it starts with the actual faith and the emotional side of having this optimism and sort of this empathy for other people. And that is what kind of enables the empirical evidence and sort of to look forward to that and to create it. Create empirical truth for others to essentially live a better life. And also kind of to like, just to answer what Susan was saying about, can you make something not true truth? In a sense, I think because we create things, you know, I can have something in my head that isn't realistically true yet, doesn't exist, but if I create it, then in a sense it is true. But like how you said, it really depends on how you define it.
She's replying to you. I mean, she's not wasting her voice. This is too simple for her, so she's just like typing. You know.
Oh, okay. Are we gonna read this real quick before Manzi goes? Because we are talking about truth right now. Is this a truth? Yeah, I guess.
You want to read it or do I read
You can
it?
read it. I was just reading that part. I was like, that's funny.
Okay, so this is true? I think so. Now, sorry, should I do the voice? Like, no, I won't do the voice. I won't try. I'm not deserving. I'm not deserving. So now, can we take these facts truth that does not seem disputable and make it a non-truth? I'm thinking not, unless you use the word truth differently than how I am now using it, and I'm not even sure how I'm using it. I don't have a definitive complete definition, but I think it can be linked to facts in some cases. I'm guessing in some
That's a good
cases.
point.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So, all right. Now I think Nancy's next. Well, I think no, I know.
Hey, yeah, is that the truth? Yeah, you know,
That's a fact.
I just wanted to get back to you know, something that that Courtney was saying, and we're kind of all branching off of this idea of truth is relative or context based, which is kind of what Susan is getting at. This idea of, well, it depends on the terms, and you know, that's both very fair points, but you know, that brings up maybe the other side of it, which is to say, are some perspectives closer to the truth than others? And so, for example, it's like, okay, well, from my perspective right now, again, I'm looking at my cell phone, and it looks to me, from what I have experienced, that there's nothing in between me and my cell phone. But if I were to take a different perspective, say the perspective granted me through a microscope, I will see that in fact, there are tons of cells and mitochondria and all that stuff between me and my phone. Those are two different perspectives on the same phenomenon. Is one closer to the truth than the other? I think on some level, you'd have to say, yeah. Because the fact is that when you look at you know, space through just the naked eye, it looks like it's empty. When you look at it through the microscope, it shows what's, and this goes back to last month's term, it shows what's really there. So I think that just because there are different perspectives doesn't make all perspectives equal, arguably. When I say I think, I mean, I'm throwing that out there for debate. But, oh yeah, okay, so I see the chat is blowing up here, so I'll stop for the moment. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Let's take a look.
Let's take a look. Like, this is like a TV show now. This is okay.
We got a caller on line one.
Yeah, line one. Yes, Ravi. Yeah, this is you.
Very
Go ahead,
fun.
take it.
Okay, I've just been listening to everyone discussing, and I'm a bit of a stickler for definitions, and I'm very slow to define something as that thing. And once I define something as that thing, I hardly move easily. So I've just been thinking about truth and hearing discussions about truth being relative, being moldable, being bendable, and all of that. The way I see it, if it's bendable, if it's moldable, if it's relative, then it's not a truth. My understanding of truth is in whatever scenario you put it in, it remains true. In whatever context you put it in, it remains true. So I'm going to speak a little bit of Christianese for my non-Christian friends, but it's the only way that I can explain it. In Christian circles, they say revelation is progressive. In other words, if you find out something today, you can come back tomorrow and say, well, you should do things differently because I found out something different 2 days later. And then we move because of the new revelation, but it's not necessarily a truth. The truth and a truth, in my own view and the way I see it, does not bend, does not move, does not change, regardless of what circumstance, context you put it in. So I would like to suggest that very few things are true. Very few things can be said to be a truth. We have lots of discoveries, we have lots of things that we see, but then to define it as truth, very few things are truth. Pontius Pilate said, what is truth? I mean, very few things are truth, in my opinion.
That's a very good point of view. I like it. Do you have one of those truths? At least I can say I know something. Otherwise, I keep having to say I know nothing, and that doesn't have too much ring into it.
I am Rawiro. That's a truth.
All right. I mean, okay. And now the next one in line is, and now please everybody be silent, is Susan. Go ahead, Susan. Boo, 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 boo.
Hello. All right. So I'm in my kitchen now, and I haven't been showing my face because I have German French fruits, and right now I'm making some German red cabbage. It's very delicious. But what I wanted to say was in response to Manzi. So I don't want truth to be subjective and contextual. I want it to be objective and universal. And it's weird because this is like a feeling that I have. It's like a primal desire that I have. I feel threatened by there not being an objective truth and not being able to say that there is a truth. I think my point or my thinking was more along the lines that maybe it was more like people's concepts of truth. Their definition will influence what they think of truth and whether or not they think you can make something that is what I'm going to call a not truth into a truth. But it's also interesting to think about the other direction. Can we make a truth a not truth? And I do think that in the last year or 4 or maybe more, people have been trying to make what I'm thinking of as a truth a not truth and a not truth a truth. I don't know. It's just interesting though, but I do have this primal feeling of wanting objective truth. And my point was more that, like I said, that I just think our usage of the term can be subjective and relative and contextual, but that doesn't mean that I myself think there is no objective truth. And even if rationally I'm thinking there might not be an objective universal truth, I still want there to be emotionally an objective universal truth. That's it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And
Can I respond?
yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I agree with that. That part you said where, I mean, sometimes subjective truths operate as though they're objective truths. And so I guess this gets us to this idea of what a belief is, and can a belief be false or true? And regardless of if it's false or true, if you have beliefs, they still function in a certain way. So if you believe something to be true, even if you can tell yourself, well, I have reason to doubt, you're still, if you believe it to be true, you're going to live your life under that truthful assumption. That might not make it true, or it might not be reflecting of an immutable eternal truth, but it's functioning as though it were. And so I guess the question becomes, well, are we comfortable with operating under subjective truths and then pretending like they're objective? Or do we have this emotional yearning to say, no, I want the real, I want the true truth? And if so, again, how does one find it? And then how does one share it? And then what does one do if it's not accepted? Yeah, no, I like the way you articulated that, because again, it goes back to something Orlando was saying, where it's like, you could have certain feelings on truth and you could have certain beliefs on truth. That doesn't make either one true. Another way to look at it might be like this. And maybe this is a way to integrate the two. We take what we can. This kind of gets back to what Ravi was saying. We take what we can know, what we've experienced, what we've gathered, either individually or collectively, and we say, well, this is truth as we understand things now, and this is the standard by which we judge truth. But then if something else changes, maybe a new phenomenon enters the equation, maybe it's flying through the air and crashes at Roswell, or maybe there's some new scientific discovery, and we have reason to change our standards by which we judge truth. So, maybe we prove something by X, Y, and Z. But then if we discover that something is the case, but X, Y, and Z can't account for it, well, then we have to add W. So that not only like changes our perception of the truth, it changes the way that we come to grasp truth, to verify truth in the first place. So the standards by which we evaluate truth or falsehood can themselves change based upon, again, the phenomena at hand or the experiences that we encounter. So that's how something that maybe is a lie can become a truth, because maybe your belief in something gets disproven, if that makes sense. Or something that you just believed in gets proven. So it went from a belief to, quote unquote, evidenced. Orlando, I see you shaking your head. What's up, buddy?
He's
I was going to
completely
say something.
disagreeing
I was
with
going to say something along what you were saying towards the end. But I guess kind of just to bring it back, I think truth depends on the truth statement. And I think by how Ferdinando was saying, if it can change later, if it's moldable, and how Rivera was saying, it's kind of fixed. Well, I don't know. I don't really know which one of those is truth, because I can say something like, okay, I am here now. That is objectively truth. But guess what? If I walk outside later, I'm no longer going to be here now. And so therefore, the truth in a sense has changed. And so therefore, it is moldable in that sense. So I think when it comes to things like morality and cultures, that's something that's kind of not really a fixed truth. Within society, there's always these certain common understandings of how we feel about certain things and how we understand to be truth through society. And that never seems to be fixed, at least in my opinion. But when it comes to things like, okay, does 2 + 2 = 4? Is the sun hot? When you take these very easily provable things, those are objective truths that essentially do not change, how Rivera was saying. So I think the nature of something in their truths, I guess it depends on the essence of it. So I guess in Rivera, she would kind of say, well, maybe in terms of society, there is no truths. That would be kind of a good way to respond to that. Well, is that true? Is my question.
No.
Is that something I just don't know the answer to?
I don't think it's true. I don't think it's true. Like, that would be weird, There's nothing true there. Like, oh my God. It's kind of like piggybacking on the whole idea that I don't want it to be true. But does it even matter if I don't want it to be true? Does my feeling matter in this case? I don't think
But that
it matters.
could also give rise to relativism. So even the example of the sun. Well, okay, let's change it up and say the ocean. So we could say if you plumb the ocean a certain depth, that the water is cold. But that's cold from our perspective and the way that our nervous system works and what we can tolerate given the kind of organism we are. But relative to, say, I don't know, a mollusk, I don't know sea creatures. But relative to what lives deep down in the sea, it's not cold to them. And we're both right. The truth is, it's cold for humans. It's not cold for the sea creature. So then, what do we make about the truth of what's cold? Well, the truth of what's cold is always going to be relative to the organism or the creature that's experiencing it. So even then, you could kind of say the truth is, it's both relative and objective. The objective truth is that the truth is relative.
But man, you could just fix the truth statement. You could define hot as a certain temperature and say the sun is this certain degrees, therefore it must be hot. So it really depends on sort of the bylaws you're giving to it, and that's why truth is so fickle in that sense. And I don't know. Well, I'll stop.
Okay, I do want to say this. Courtney was typing, and we kind of like skip it. So what she said was that people can, there you go. So people can use something that a group holds to be true to justify something that is untrue. Some people can claim the earth is 4,000 years old because that is what the Bible says is true, even though it has been proven untrue. Some people hold some truths higher than other truths, which is more true, religion or science. It is true that my brother is asking my dog to sit. That is absolutely true.
Can I give a quick response to that? It's going to be so
Yeah, sure.
quick. You could say that they're both equally as true as the other. If you believe that like all that is true is your mind, is the mind, and our perception is all that is true, it's possible we all live in a matrix and like nothing around us is true, and therefore everything that science has found is in reality non-existent, but something set by someone else. So that you could take it that far, and that's where it ends. I mean, it's kind of, that's not necessarily what I believe, but logically speaking.
Okay. Since something's going on here, I'm just gonna go straight away. Ravi, you're next.
To Orlando, and I would like to respond to Professor Manzi. So Orlando was talking about possibly there being no societal truths. I say yes, there are none. And then Professor Manzi, you asked if we are comfortable with subjective truths to be able to say, okay, this is the truth, but it's subjective, it's not objective. I don't think as people we are, like even without evidence, we still believe our subjective truth to be objective until something crushes that with evidence. I'll give you an example. Some people who believe in karma, like that there's somebody who's got a bag waiting for you if you do something bad, and that bag will be delivered to you, and then you're going to get your karma. We have no evidence for that. But we believe that with no evidence. So even though it's subjective, we take it to be objective. I just don't think we are comfortable with holding a truth as subjective. I don't think we're there yet.
Okay, yeah, I think you're really onto something there. I think you have a good point. I mean, there's a few different ways to respond. On the one hand, somebody like Friedrich Nietzsche might say, well, that's just cowardly. One should be willing to embrace the truth of life, which is that there are no truths. And if one can't do that, one is choosing to live in self-denial for the sake of their own comfort. And that's not necessarily laudatory. But having said that, again, not to say that I believe in that, but that's one way to respond. But okay, let's consider a truth then, along the lines of what you're saying. Let's say I believe the truth is that all people are inherently good. Now, is that a truth one can prove? Like objectively? No, it doesn't. But is that idea, is that sort of opinion probably very important to that person? Yeah, it's probably one of the guiding truths of their whole life, to the point where if they experience, disappointment after letdown, after being deceived, after being lied to, the person still might cling to that belief and say, oh no, I still got to believe that people are good in the end, even though I have plenty of evidence to the contrary in one's personal life or in the headlines that one reads in newspapers. I'm sorry, newspapers were this thing back in the day. They'd get delivered to you and you would read them. I'm showing my age. But yeah, that's the thing, is that it seems like some of the most important truths aren't ones that could ever be proven, at least on a personal, again, going back an emotional level. And yet those are the truths that people are least likely to relinquish. Hey, it turns out we can prove that the earth is flat. People will be like, well, if science has proven it, I guess we could believe it. But hey, it turns out everybody in your life is taking advantage of you and hating you, and your family doesn't love you. Then you might be like, well, I'm not going to believe that. I don't care if there's reason to. So this is kind of what I was getting at, when it's this idea of how does truth, quote unquote, function in our lives? Maybe, as Orlando was saying earlier, there's some value to not necessarily investigating the truth of matters, because it might undo your personal truths, or might undo the truth of who you think you are. If you think of yourself as somebody who is eternally optimistic and a forgiving and patient person, and somebody who wants to believe in the good of other people, and you keep getting disproven time after time, well, if you're to change your mind about the nature of people, you're going to change your understanding of who you are as a person. And so it's maybe not in your best interest to do that if you value your perspective, regardless of your life experiences. Kind of an existential slant, but yeah.
Manzi, that was really well put, but it also made me think of something else. Even when it comes to someone's own subjective truth, when does it become a lie to themselves? When does one's own truth become a lie? Because what if you're living in a life, you say, well, I'm happy, well, I'm happy, well, I'm happy. And literally everyone in your life saying, man, you look rough. Man, you're looking depressed. At what point is that a lie? And to what extent, and that kind of paints a bigger question here. Is there a way to kind of measure some sort of truth when it comes to emotions, when it comes to society? I kind of, for the most part, believe there isn't necessarily, but when you really look at psychology and sort of the things that are found there, when you have like things like depression and stress have a negative physical toll on your body, that is something that's objective. That is something that's emotional, and that is something that is measured. So when you kind of take that into consideration, well, then what if that is just something that we have kind of yet to really discover on how to accurately measure it? Not that we ever could, but if we could measure it, then wouldn't that make it that there has to be some objective truth?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think a lot of studies in the social sciences right now are trying to do that. They're trying to prove what happiness is by proving, who is happy and how they're living, and what is in their life and what is not in their life. And so if you have these factors, you're more likely to be happy. But I love the point about how you're linking the emotional to the physical there, because the physical toll, and this is more the scientific side, it's measurable. You can have the facts and figures and say, no, the stress that you're enduring by maybe lying to yourself, it's catching up with you. You're going to suffer a stroke, or you're going to, again, maybe have a heart attack or something like that. Yeah, I like that. I like that approach. I got to think more about it. Go to the queue. Is there anybody in there?
I'm literally the last one on the queue. How about proof and belief?
That's why I'm here.
I'm sorry, Fernando. I'm sorry. I can't tell if you're talking or not.
But Catherine Burgos says something.
You're freezing up, bro, so I'm like confused.
I'm internet really. That's tough.
Can you hear me?
It's okay. What about now? Yes, I can. Yes, I can. I can hear you. This is
okay. I think you're good.
All right.
It's okay, bro. It's okay.
Okay.
You're back.
There you go. Can you read it, please? There.
Okay. I'll read what Catherine wrote. Let me see here. Okay. So yeah, Catherine writes, in literature, when we think of autobiographies, we believe that the accounts written are 100% accurate or quote unquote true, and autobiographies are often seen as the most authentic versions of reality. I mean, that's debatable. Yet, like everything, it is very subjective. Oh, there you go. The truth isn't always about getting everything right, quote unquote, and the facts and truths are not identical things. Yeah, that's a really excellent point. Catherine, could you elaborate on that? Like how, especially that last part about facts and truths? Fantastic, thank you, Catherine.
Well, can I respond to that real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Couldn't you say that they just lied and they just didn't tell the truth, and that those just just weren't the facts. If you take that approach, I mean, like if I in my autobiography site write, oh, I was an amazing trapeze artist, that doesn't hold to be true. I just lied about it. That's not a fact. I just lied. If I just never was a trapeze artist, I just never was a trapeze artist. I think that's I don't think that's the case necessarily.
Yeah, but I do like the idea that what she's getting at is that's how you can manufacture truth.
That's true.
That's how you can sort of
That is
contrive it.
true.
Is that true? And yeah, if that becomes accepted by a certain amount of people, then it might as well function as objective truth. And this is what we see with science. Everything in science, for the most part, is always qualified as hypothetical, but we accept it as if it's objective truth.
But there's a difference there, though. The way that hypothetical is arrived at is empirically based, while something else is falsely based.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is when it comes to untangling intentions. So, the example of an autobiography, somebody could be relaying facts and say, I did this, and then I did that, and then I did this. I swam on the swim team. And then you can go back and find, hey, look, he was on the swim team. There he is on the roster. But, if you then take those facts and say, this makes him a real athlete, that's when you begin to create a narrative that might be based in fact, but it might not be the case. Or you might say he's a good person because he taught people how to swim as like a lifeguard or something. It's like, okay, yeah, he did teach people how to swim, but does that make him a good person? Maybe he did it because he needed the money,
But that's not really like a truth statement, or maybe a personal truth statement. That's more of an opinion and a subjective argument, I guess you could say. It's like, I like the point you're making, because I mean it has a lot to do with history in terms of like might be controversial here, like Christopher Columbus. You could say, oh, okay, let me not use that voice. He discovered America. He must have been great. Okay. Well, those two debatably are not true. I'm just gonna say that. But let's just pretend that he did discover America. Let's pretend. So you could say, okay, well, he discovered America, but then you're going to say he was great because he discovered America. Here is the truth. Here is your opinion. You put them together,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what you're getting at. And I agree. I mean, I think that there's a problem with that when you start to look at sort of these facts that are kind of out of context, and then you start to apply your own truths to them. When your own truths in this sense are not truth, though, based on kind of the definition that Revero gave us earlier, in my opinion.
Yeah, I like that. And then suddenly facts become like weapons in a weird way to defend your narrative truth. Mm-hmm. It's like, of course I love you. I took you out to dinner on Valentine's Day. Yeah, but you took me to McDonald's. That's not love. Yeah, but I took you to McDonald's because that was the first date we ever went on. Yeah, because we were both broke. You know what I mean? So, I mean, all these stories, these narratives are based in fact, but it's almost like, again, getting back to my earlier point, like, how do truths function? What do you do with truth as we understand it? And then I think when you get to look at the sort of the pragmatic nature of how people use truth in their daily lives and their self-understanding and how they sort of navigate the world, questions of objective truth versus subjective truth, I almost want to say they're byproducts, and that's a controversial statement. But I mean, just to put a cherry on that, I'm not sure most people even really care to question the status of the beliefs they hold, so long as it's allowing them to function properly and, quote unquote, succeed.
But wouldn't you say that there's a very thin line there? Because that's when you kind of start to get this sort of conflict within societies, is that when people start to take empirical truths and start to make their own truths out of it. That's when you can say the people who have these sort of racist, ignorant beliefs can kind of justify them through their own personal truths. And I think that is definitely an issue and something that needs to be kind of combated in a sense,
Yeah.
Because it can be applied to many things,
Yeah, I think you're right. And then it's scarier when, people begin to sort of control the mechanisms of truth manufacturing. So people begin to play with studies And so if you're accustomed to just believing in facts and figures, you might not be as inclined to question, the studies that produce them, or the methods of measurement, or the sponsors of these studies. So it becomes almost overwhelming to try to figure out fact from fiction, and fake news versus truthiness, stuff like that. It becomes so overwhelming that it might disincline people from not just seeking, but even caring to.
But Benzi, you're so right. I mean, and that kind of goes back to like what the question you were asking earlier about feelings and then how they could intermingle with facts. And I think that's an instance is that like if you start to feel something just doesn't feel true, even though everyone is telling you, and then you empirically investigate it, and then you find that it's not what it's said to be, then that can be kind of a positive mixture of the two, because then I think it's how you get from your feelings to the actual fact itself, that the way you go about doing that is what matters in that sense, I guess you could say. If you investigate it and you really find, you really truly look at it objectively, it's better. But if you just say, oh no, I feel it, so therefore I feel that, then that's different.
But the feelings are
Are they? Are they real? No, but I mean, I do like what you're saying. I was trying to like participate, but I thought I was unmuted and I wasn't. So cool. I was just muted talking to myself as usual. It happens every day. Nothing wrong with it. So I think hopefully that's the truth. If not, well, I mean, I don't want to believe otherwise. Don't convince me. So anyways, but I do think, like, for example, you're mentioning something that I do like a lot, which is like people depend a lot on facts, but sometimes even though a fact may tell you part of the truth, if you dismiss the other part, which in this case we can maybe say like the emotional part, then it's you're like sometimes, like, I do believe that some people really just trying to narrow it down, because if they take the whole thing, it may make them look bad, which is, I think, what you are suggesting is like some people may try to play with media because they will use a very specific portion of the information, so it can be used for their benefit, and then they start disregarding anything else that is also true regarding their own assessments. Like, one thing that I can maybe think of is like people like boosting or reducing the number of deaths and certain like sickness, so they can say like, you see, my term was amazing, and it's like you're hiding all the bodies in the back. It's like, well, I mean, how amazing was it really? um so yeah, like, truth is complicated. That's the truth. You may take my word. um but it is also fascinating because we are moved by it, not necessarily to know it, but just to kind of like have a sense of what we're doing. Because I feel like at the end, whenever you see something kind of fit in your personality, if it works for you, most of people are just gonna take it and don't discuss it too much, unless you're like in the philosophy club, and then you're like, okay, I feel uncomfortable about it, but let's try to see. I kind of want to know the truth. Oh no, please don't tell me I'm wrong. Like, oh, I was wrong. Oh my god. So like, so that's why we're here. So you can feel a little bit more uncomfortable. Um, so yeah, and we also have a couple of chats. For example, Courtney was mentioning that she personally does not think any emotion can really be true. Emotions are extremely subjective and they vary. Emotions are also sometimes unrecognized in the sense that we may not even realize what we're feeling ourselves. I mean, I see what you're trying to say, and I agree to some degree. For example, like, there are some people who they are not necessarily angry, but if they can act angry, and they, to some extent, they're gonna feel it, which for me is scary, but it is a thing. I have seen it. It's like, you weren't even angry, you just pretended, but now you're actually angry. So like, yeah, it's kind of hard to assess whether an emotion is true or not. And then we have Abby. She's saying, I think that it is where revisionist history comes from. It is presented as truth, but it is highly reinterpreted. Highly, not lowly. It's very important keyword there. So yes. Um, I don't know. I mean, we're also in this situation that most of the people who present our vision of truth, like, they're experts on the field, and we kind of just assume that they have some study in it, and yeah, that's true. And we mostly base our day-to-day actions or interactions based on what we have been previously told, and not necessarily explore ourselves. But we don't really have time to explore everything. So that's why even more right now that we have all these source of information, you just kind of take what is easy, and maybe that's why I'm not saying that before was better. Obviously not. They had their own version of having the truth, but it's so easy right now to just say, "Hey, did you hear this? This person, like, I don't know." I'm not gonna put any physical thing in it, but like he said that he has like a blue thing, he really didn't. And maybe, I mean, did you know? Did you actually saw the glass? Like you don't know. And I see Nancy is trying to say something, so go ahead.
Yeah, well, and also just to read what Ravi wrote, yeah, maybe that's where revisionist history comes from. I think that's a solid point. And yeah, we could certainly go down that rabbit hole, but yeah, I mean, we could even start on the individual level. I mean, how do individuals revise their own personal history? Going back to something Orlando was saying, you know, can you lie to yourself to the point where you believe the lies to be true and genuinely believe them? So I don't know if y'all are familiar with the lie detector tests, but the way they work is, okay, I'm not going to get into it super intricately, but they measure your physical responses to questions. So they determine, you know, whether or not you're lying, not based upon what you're saying, but based upon how your body is reacting to what you're saying. So if you ever play poker or something, there's a term, it's called a tell. Not David Tell, the brilliant comedian, but a tell is, again, your body is giving up, you know, your intentions, whether they're deceitful or not, and you don't even realize. And so that's kind of how a lie detector works. The idea is that if you are knowingly telling a lie, then your body will respond. All human beings their bodies will respond in a certain way that can't be denied. That's the empirical physical evidence. Now, of course, they're not admissible in a court of law because it's possible to fool a lie detector test. How? Well, to quote George Costanza from Seinfeld, if you really believe it, then it's not a lie. And the idea is that if you truly believe something, even if you are faced with rational reasons for not believing in it, and you still truly in your heart of hearts believe it, emotionally believe it, then it's functioning as a truth. I mean, that further complicates matters of truth itself, of course, not just personally, but you know, all objectively. But there, I think that's a good example of this sort of this bifurcation from, on the one hand, here's what's being stated as true, and here's what the body is seeming to reveal in terms of whether or not it's actually considered truthful. So again, this is how you can sort of argue, like in a court of law, hey, yes, my client did factually commit this crime, but my client did so believing this and really believed this. I mean, that's how you could claim insanity, for example. So yeah, I mean, the truth is endlessly complicated, and it all really boils down, or rather reduces back to, what are the standards by which we judge truth? And I think, you know, over the years, if you believe in this idea of progress, truth is being judged more along the lines of what is provable, what is verifiable. You might believe you can fly, and somebody says, prove it. You know, something along these lines. Is that advancement? Is it just a deviation? Right? Is it a lateral movement? That's the real question. And I invite everybody who's listening to ask yourself, well, what are your standards for believing something or not believing in something? And is your standard for holding your beliefs as true and, you know, living them as though you truly believe that they're true? Are those standards robust? Are they based in logic? Are they based more in emotion? And can we even say some standards are better than others in deciding what truth is? For example, there are philosophers, okay, what's called American philosophy is very much rooted in this pragmatic notion of if a truth is functioning in a way that keeps society cohesive, then that is the truth. And we speak of truth knowing that it's subjective, knowing that it's just practical, but we accept it like it isn't. We accept it as though it is objective truth. And that's more beneficial for us as a whole, as a community. And so that's why it deserves to be accepted as true. Okay, I mean, it's very different from say, well, here's what science has proven, or here's what my religion has taught me. Different standards.
I see.
Compare that to Socrates, who died for the truth that nobody accepted.
So,
yeah. I
Alright.
mean, if you want to go ahead, it's okay.
Okay. This will be the last thing I guess I say. But I guess you brought up so much, Manzi. It's kind of hard to follow up with that. But I think with people in terms of how we accept truth, there's many different manners of which they do it. There might be people like how you said Socrates. I guess you could say if many people exist like that, where all they want to accept is the truth. No matter how ugly, no matter how hard it is to live with it, they'll accept the truth. While others, to some extent, they kind of pick and choose what truths they might want to live with. And honestly, it's kind of hard to blame somebody like that because sometimes the truth may not be appealing. It might be rough. It might be harder for them to live their everyday life if they accept every single ugly truth. Imagine the physical toll that your mind would take if you were to go scroll through your phone, look at all the single bad things that happen in the world. That's not something that we want to expose ourselves to. I think as humans, I think most people have this sort of consistency of not taking all the truths, of essentially picking and choosing those truths. I don't know if necessarily that's the best thing. It seems like in our society today, we're kind of commercializing that to an extent. It's like, okay, you people that have those truths, I'm going to sell this to you. You people that have that truth, I'm going to sell this to you. And so that you're walking a very dangerous line there where basically we're not really prioritizing science anymore. You don't really see peer review studies getting funded anymore. More online, it's like, how does this truth make me look? How does it make me feel? That's not necessarily wrong, but how far you take it can be wrong. Easy example, Ted Cruz and all the Republican conservatives, depending on your ideology of what it is, I'm sorry if I offend you, but basically they were going and saying, okay, well, you know why the power outages were happening in the US was because we're starting to get green energy in here. That's why it happened. And so you have this fact that's kind of out of context. But when you actually look at the real facts, 66% of the actual power outages were happening because of oil and exhaustible energy, not because of green energy. So it's like there you have an instance of a person choosing a specific truth because it made them look better and it had a negative repercussion on others. And so that's when it starts once again to get very thin line. But yeah.
Okay. I did wanted to also introduce something that, well, not introduce, just to kind of like keep talking about a point that Nancy mentioned, which is like the whole idea that if one truth can benefit, like, well, we can even say truth, but like if it is a fundamental element that can benefit the society, then we will hold it as truth just because of the functionality instead of like of what it really, if it is really truth or not. For me, that's like who is even capable of deciding such a thing? Like, because I don't think like it was like every single individual from that society really came together and talk about it. It's like, you know what, yes, we decided that this is what it is. Like, it's really just a specific people who like they believe like this is what I believe is the best for everyone, and you're gonna take it because I have the power to do so. So it is not necessarily truth. It may be truth for that person, but like, I mean, should we really just try to use the truth just for the functionality? Do we even as a society can really take the real truth without letting that like affect how we normally will interact with our environment? Because I something that I am afraid is that some people may use truth to limit themselves to seek more. Some people may see that, since I'm broken and I'm unintelligent and never studied, so I'm not gonna go beyond my ranks because that's not me. I mean, true, that could be you in this moment, but you don't know. Like maybe you can actually get it, but you didn't try because you opted to just stay with this truth, which is a truth that limits you. So it's kind of like the whole idea that maybe this is true right now, but like you can, like that doesn't mean that we can challenge the truth itself. You know, like maybe like it is beneficial to from time to time to say, even though this is truth, I will look for a matter to make that truth a lie and make something new from it. So that's why the whole concept for me is weird, because then if I believe that we need to face truth if we want real change. If you just kind of like decide to hide it, it pieces are gonna be coming and going everywhere, and people, some are gonna pick this one, some are gonna pick that one, and then it's more discord, and it it slow or progress. At least that's what I think, not necessarily true or not.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point. Yeah, I really like that. I like how you put it. And you know, it also cuts the other way. I mean, sometimes, I don't know, I'll use myself as an example. I'm 37 years old. I'm 5'7". I'm like 100 pounds. And if I said to myself, I believe I can make it to the major leagues, I could be a professional baseball player. Nothing in the universe can stop me. I can do it. At a certain point, is my belief in this alternative truth harmful? Like just to me individually? I mean, so you know, the phrase reality check comes to mind. So it's almost like trying to find the in between of that truth, which is, you know, is it one extreme or is it the other? And so I think that's what people, if they do take on this personal struggle with themselves, I think that's kind of where the struggle pivots. That's the crux of it, is trying to, as you said, Fernando, beautifully, I mean, remaining optimistic in one's talents and not just conceding that what one has done is all that one is capable of. But on the other hand, trying to set goals that are again, realistic. The truth of what I can accomplish. Ah, thanks for coming, Susan. We'll see you next
Thank you
time.
for coming. She just always storm out. She's like, peace out.
I think she's turning 49 today.
All right, we should probably give a disclaimer to say, hey guys, you know, the meeting has definitely passed its end time. If you guys were, you know,
No,
had to
actually,
go.
no. Actually, no. Actually, we still have 10 more minutes because this is a special meeting. We're
Oh,
waiting to vote. So actually, we still have
we
10.
did that?
You,
We're doing that?
you are obliged. It is truth that you have to stay here
No,
for 10 more
okay.
minutes. That's what's happening here. That's what's happening. Yeah, send the email. So yeah. Since we missed the last meeting, now we're adding at least 30 more minutes so we can make up for the both topics, so we can explore both ideas. That's basically what it is. Normally you will be right.
Oh my god.
And
I
that's
mean,
a
if you want to look at the recording, it says 124. You guys said 15 minutes. That's
30.
9 minutes off. So no, that's not true.
Thanks, Ravi. Thanks
Okay.
for coming.
Thank you, Ravi. So yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we do have, like, we should kind of start wrapping up. We are going to call it at 4:30, and I want to make some announcements at the end as well. But I am curious. I'll turn it over to the officers. If you feel like sharing, how do you construct your truths? I mean, your understanding of what's true. I mean, where did it come from? Elementary school? Your own your own experiences? Maybe you witness other people experiencing things that you want to experience, and you say, "Hey, I could do that too." So is it more of like, you know, telling yourself, like creating the truth and then making it manifest in actual truth?
Do you want to go first, Ferdinando?
Sure, I can go first. Is Yusha still like there? I'm not sure.
Nah, it doesn't
If
look
he's
like
there,
it. Oh,
then
he is here still.
he was with the client. That's why I'm not completely sure if he can speak. I'm gonna wait for a couple of seconds to see. If not, that's fine. I guess I can go.
I was joking. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
So, well, I mean, I'm not sure actually how to define that. I mean, the way I engage with truth is like I'm always seeking it, and I always think that I don't know it. So like it's constantly that's basically what I do. Like since I have memory, which is very early. I that's basically what I do. Like I no matter how somebody's position is in my life, if that person tells me, I don't know, this is red, this thing is red, I would say why, like why is it red? Like what makes it red? And if somebody else has a different opinion, I would do the same question, and I would try to like connect as many dots as I can, and I never completely close the door because I feel like if I ever close it, I may be missing that extra input that may change really something that I need to learn from. So like I guess my version of truth is I never know it, but I'm always trying to seek it for it, and that's why I tend to engage with so many people on different views and try to keep conversations open. That way I can hear my voice now. Okay, it was for a second. So that way I can, at the very least, if I'm not gonna know it, I can, you know, keep looking for it, and instead of just saying, "No, I'm Ferdinando. There's nobody else named Ferdinando." Ah, you know that those people who are so close-minded that it's almost like ridiculous to speak to them because it's like like it's right here. Come on, listen to me. So I don't want to be that guy. I guess that's what it is.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, even referring back to your previous example, it sounds like you believe in a truth. Like there is a truth, and so you seek it. And you know, that's a belief. And you can even apply it to yourself, where you're like, yeah, the truth to me and everything that I am has yet to fulfill itself, has yet to be revealed. So I have these parts about me, but they don't complete me. And if I continue to sort of push myself and expand my horizons and you know, seek out new experiences, I'll find more, like the greater truth of who I am, more of a truth to who I am. I mean, that's an interesting way to put it. It's kind of like leaving the truth open, but still having reason to believe there's more to it than what meets the eye and or what has previously been discovered, even in oneself. Also, just real quick, I was looking at the chat before you go, Orlando, and this is my way of keeping it here. Osita mentioned something about American philosophy that I think is interesting. Again, the comment is that American philosophy sounds dangerous. I think there's a point to be made about that. I'm just going to bring up what's interesting from the American philosophy perspective. And again, we're talking like just the last 125 years. It's a recent philosophy or movement philosophy. But they want to argue that it's actually the least dangerous kind of, because it's putting societal cohesiveness first. Whereas if you have truths that exist in society that people are just unwilling to divorce themselves from or unwilling to relent from, that's what causes things like war and fighting and violence. So if you find that functions the best for everybody, then that's actually the safest way. That's why it's called pragmatism, because that's the most pragmatic form of truth, because it's going to result in the least amount of conflict, allegedly. Just to respond, because at the end of the day, I do agree with the comments, but I mean, that would be a way to respond. But okay, I just want to make sure we respond to everybody. But yeah, what's up, bro? What do you got?
Thanks for interrupting me, Nancy. Great. I had a whole
think.
speech. No, I'm playing with you. I'm playing. No, I mean, just to kind of add something to this, because Ferdinando kind of said a lot of like how I feel as well. You know, when I was a kid, I used to have a dream, like a lot. I used to have a dream. Yeah, it is the silly. So I used to have a dream where I was in my bed, and that I'd be in my room and it'd get really dark, and then out of nowhere, I'm still in my bed, but I'm no longer in my room. I'm actually in space, and I can see stars, and I'm like floating around. And at first, when I was a kid, like it would be so scary to me. It was like, oh man, I'm lost. I don't know where I'm going. What's going on? But then after a while, like that same dream kind of, I started to see it differently, where it was like, I feel comfortable, where no longer was I in my bed, but I was like in space and I was like enjoying it. And I kind of feel like that's kind of how I treat truth, in a sense where at first I was in my own comfy little world of truth where I understood things so very restricted. I thought this is only like this and that's it. And I was so comfortable with it that I didn't want to step outside of it. I didn't want to get out of my bed into space. And so and then after a while, after I understood, after I kind of fell out of my bed and I fell onto the void, I guess you could say, until I've experienced the void and I experienced that there's other understandings, that's when I started to feel comfortable with it. That's when I started to pursue it and started to look for it and to feel it and to understand different things. And so now I kind of just see life as this kind of never-ending search, kind of how Fernando was saying, where like, yeah, I hold my own truths that kind of keep me, in a sense, grounded, but at the same time, I understand that I might float, that I might go left, right, everywhere, that I have different kinds of ways, different kinds of gravities may pull me towards them, different kinds of logics, different kinds of lives, and that's it.
Yeah, that was a great way to describe it. I like that. I second that sentiment, both of y'all. I think that's a healthy way to exist.
Fernando, a dream like Martin Luther King Jr.
Just started like that. Like I had a
It wasn't
dream
that
when
kind
I
of
was a
dream,
baby.
bro.
A dream. Like
I wish
okay,
I
Martin
was
Luther
that.
Um, okay, and yeah, real quick. Osidi, you wanted to make a point?
Yeah. I guess I just wanted to like expound on like what I meant by like American philosophy being, I guess, dangerous, because it just seems like it's justifying lying to like, I guess, quote unquote, your people, your society, or whatever. And I think, you know, yeah, it's dangerous to like justify that. I think we're seeing a lot these days. There's a lot of talk about like conspiracy theorists, or like even people who believe that the Earth is flat. And I think some of these people sort of get to this point because you know when they learn something like weapons of mass destruction, when it's like, oh, my government has lied to me about this. It's like if your spouse lies to you about something serious as like war or something like that, and it becomes hard to trust your government, which kind of like sort of defeats the purpose of like keeping society together. If the people don't start to not trust you because you're lying to them. I think that's what I meant by it, like I guess being dangerous. It's like if you're a husband with a family and like you have another family, it's like you could say, that's good because I'm not going to tell my original wife that I have another family because I don't want any conflict in the marriage. But is that right? Maybe it's best just to get it out. You guys talk about it and get a divorce or whatever. Have an open relationship or
or a
whatever. But at
combined
least you can
family.
like,
Or
yeah,
both.
yeah, just have a nice commune. But once the truth is out, then you can like work it out. And yeah, but yeah.
That's a good point. And I think generally speaking, that's a very it lies very true to that, But I think there can be some instances. I don't think there's very many nowadays where I think it is valuable for someone who is like in high authority to kind of hide certain truths from the public, because there could be truths that maybe the public just does not have the capacity to understand. There's certain inner workings that we just don't have the function of understanding because we don't understand the context, we don't understand the facts, we don't understand how all of that works. It's like if the government was to give us every single truth, 9 times out of 10 we don't understand what's going on. But that's not to say that we shouldn't look for it, that we shouldn't understand it, or that they should lie to us or justify that. But there has to be kind of like a middle ground, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and I like both of y'all points. I really like the domestic example too. I think that's a really good way to kind of break it down. And believe me, pragmatism, American philosophy, it certainly has its critics. So you're in good company, Osita, for sure. But all right, we've crossed the 90-minute threshold here. I want to thank everybody for hanging in there. This was a fun conversation. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as we did. And just to reiterate some announcements from the top, again, we're going to be meeting next week on Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel. If you're curious as to what next week's topic will be, if you go to the files on our Teams page, you can see the entire schedule from now until, I guess, mid-May, what our topics are going to be. We also have film series installments. Next one's coming up in early March, second week of March, that Wednesday. And yeah, we'll be exploring a film that explores the notion of truth. Also, the Philosophy Student Conference will be happening Tuesday, April 27th. Excited for that. We're going to have a guest speaker. Her name is Professor Julie Leventhal. She is a faculty member in the Honors College at the University of North Texas at Denton. She is a phenomenal scholar. She's a faculty in residence, one of only two. She's a Fulbright scholar, and yeah, she's going to be presenting on philosophy and relationships. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting spotlight. I'm looking forward to that. And the actual call for submissions is going to be coming out before spring break. But I would probably say next week, next meeting, look for it. And if not, the meeting after that. But yeah, again, just to sort of develop what this conference is, it's open to all philosophy students anywhere in the Dallas, really anywhere in the state of Texas and even beyond. So if you have friends who go to different colleges in the area, or if you have friends who are taking philosophy maybe at different campuses within the Dallas College constellation, everybody's welcome to present. And yeah, we've had students present as recently as last semester from other colleges, from Austin College, from Texas A&M, from UT Austin. So just everybody's welcome. It's a really fun time. It's an all-day thing. You can show up when you want, leave when you want. It's not just presentations. A lot of them have been creative presentations, artistic presentations, poetry. We had some sing, perform a musical piece last time. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're open to all kinds of presentations. And of course, if you're my student and you apply and end up getting accepted, you don't have to take an exam. Throwing that out there. On the record.
It's recorded, it's clipped. If any of you have any issue, you can just ask for the video and I will specifically come to this point.
So yeah, look out for that. We'll have the call for submissions in the files on Teams as well as all over eCampus. Professor Susan Carrillo, who was here earlier, she presented at the conference last semester. She did a great job. So there'll be faculty presentations as well. And yeah, look for us on social media. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on, and we have our website. So yeah, follow us if you haven't already done so. We post on Instagram multiple times a week, some funny stuff, some informative stuff. It's all good. So yeah, keeping the conversation going besides just every Tuesday afternoon.
Okay.
Get at me, rate my professor.
What did you say? What did you say? Rate my professor?
Get at me.
Oh,
that
my
is a
goodness
thing.
gracious.
That is amazing. Why haven't I done that for you yet? Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean
One
neither.
star.
Yeah, one
Any
star.
other Richland
Like,
and Jeff.
Good class. Yeah, good class. Good material. Poor choices of fonts. One star.
If you take him at school, he will be late. Not late.
Cut the tape. Frank Caller.
Okay, so yes, next week, the language of truth and imagination. That's our topic. Again, just follow us on social media. If you want more access to our emails and more information, just let me know. Send me your personal email if you don't mind to, and we'll go from there. So thank you so much. I will stop the recording and think about it. There you go. This has been Ferdinando, and see you later. That's rough.